Peter, get out of there. It's the ghost of Peter. Okay, so I have fully, there we go. All right, so we are going live. I'm waiting for a few guests to arrive. We have a really big show for you tonight. A couple of things going on that are just spectacular. Um, all of which are fairly innocuous. Basically, it's just a matter of the dog trainers nonsense. Um, but yeah, it should be some riveting conversation. We have quite a few. We have our fourth chair is going to be occupied by none other than Josh Wiggins of Houston Dog Works in Houston, Texas, and I have a fifth guest who is one of the owners of one of the dogs that I posted for the live tonight. So without further ado, let's bring Jill on.
Hi, Linda.
And I'm going to be bringing our special guest, Josh Wiggins, on. Hey, Josh, how you doing?
Howdy.
Okay, ladies. So before we begin, the one thing that I want to make happen is I want for everyone to introduce themselves with basically what your chops are. Jill just recently retired what is probably the longest running dog concentric podcast in the country, if not abroad as well. Tell us about that, Jill.
Well, let's see. 18 years ago, I thought I would take advantage of a resource here known as community radio. And I was teaching a fair number of community-based obedience classes like we all do in a couple of different places. And talking to enough owners, a proportionate enough owners who were interested in why do we do things the way we do them, not just give me the straight technique. And I thought, there's not enough time in a class or even working one-on-one to dig into all that. So I thought if I start the radio program, then people who want to know more, who want a sketch of the politics of dog ownership, of why picking up after your dog is more than just being a good neighbor, that if they wanted to opt in, they could opt in. And when I first pitched the show, the guy who was the program director, he just, he was like, you're going to talk about what? And he said to me, roughly his equivalent of bring me the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West and I will grant your wish. And so as quickly as I could type them out, he asked me for 32 weeks of programming ideas. And I had those back to him about as quickly as I could type them out. And so we went ahead. I honestly think he didn't think we'd have anything to say after a month or two. But of course, there was no shortage of things to say. So yeah, 18 years.
That's a very long time. It's sad to see something as iconic as that shutter its doors, but I'm glad that I was able to convince you to do this instead.
Yeah.
So there's that. Now, tell us where you're located and some particulars about what you currently do.
Oh, I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. I teach, wasn't it Margot who used to say to people, you find me a place where y'all can come with your dogs and I'll show up and teach your class. It's a little bit like that. I teach group classes. I work with people privately, one-on-one. So lots and lots and lots of just dogs in the community. I have everything online on my website for people who want to do the remote thing or whose kids have crazy sports schedules or whatever. I also teach animal science classes at the university. They're essentially laboratory classes, so they're applied dog animal behavior classes. And what else do I do? I think I'm the only person left in town who will talk to you if you have a dangerous dog sign in your front yard.
Okay.
Most folks are just like, when the liability, nobody wants to get bitten. It's a people problem. Nobody wants to deal with it.
Okay. Julia, tell us about yourself, my dear.
Hi there. Well, I'm Julia McDonough, and I am currently based in Derry, New Hampshire. I own and operate with my business partner, Rick Froten, Fortunate Canine Dog and Owner Training. And we basically focus on pet dogs, companion dogs. We see an awful lot of dogs here with the usual menu of difficulties. The ones who can't really make it in the group classes down the street, or the ones who can't make it when they go to the vet and they get referred to a behaviorist. And those people, we tend to get a lot of just, people looking for manners on their dogs. I started out just as a kid doing AKC obedience many years ago. And for a while was the training director for Doberman Rescue Unlimited. From about 1998 till 2005, and then I went back again in 2018 to 2021, where I created their in-house training program and adopter education program for Dobermans. So that was a heck of a laboratory to work in. We've been here since about 2007 at Fortunate Canine. I currently mostly am seeing private lesson students. We do offer groups. We do some limited boarding and training. My main focus, though, is on teaching people how to train their dogs, teaching people basically how to teach their dogs in a private lesson format, because I feel like I can sort of dig in with people and calibrate the program to whatever they need. But the goal is that people leave here better off than they came here with their dogs. And other people ask them where they train their dog because their dog is good now. So I don't know what else to tell you. There's all sorts of stuff, but that's kind of the thumbnail of where I was and where I am.
Okay, well, it's given us an opportunity to get to the genesis of what our topic for conversation is tonight, because basically we're limiting it to one topic, but that one high-level overview has so many subtext to go along with it that it's going to be really, really hard to stay focused. Josh, my good man, tell us about yourself.
Hello. Josh Wiggins, owner, operator, slave, Houston Dog Works, Houston, Texas. We've been here since 2018, a little over 12 years into this in some capacity in total. Most of the business up to this point, though it is shifting, pet dogs, behavioral stuff, like has already been mentioned, a lot of my dog's already been through X, Y, and Z, and this didn't work, and my dog wants to eat so-and-so at the vet, so we get to deal with that, like we all do. This is Betty.
Betty Boop.
Betty Boop, Black Betty. Have clients that go on and compete in obedience. That was my first titling venue. Like many things in life, as a male, because of a girl, I got an upland bird dog. Had no idea what in the world I was doing, but it was a weird little breed. He will be 9 this year. Got involved in NAVDA. Also love retrievers and doing more and more performance-based work in the field, which I am thankful to do. Launching a new program, which I'm hoping will take off, called Gun Dog Garage, because to my knowledge, as we've discussed, Linda, there's not anybody really doing anything in the city, because I'm 5 minutes from downtown, specifically for sporting dogs, and I really want to target that. Lots of high-level yard work and that kind of thing, so that all the bits and pieces are put together once you're ready to get out. So you'll see more of that here shortly once I can get around to the internet side of things. But pet dogs, we offer some board and train. We offer private lessons, whether with or without board and train, and then into group classes. Train a lot of retrieves, which I also really enjoy, on non-retrievers and non-sporting breeds. And then do all kinds of other stuff, therapy dog work and all that kind of thing. But mostly people start pet dogs with problems. That's the meat and potatoes. Hello, sister. So.
Okay, so, and of course, for those that who know me, I'm Linda Kane. Can't even pronounce my own last name. I own and operate Lionheart Canine in Westminster, Maryland. I have been training dogs continuously under that banner since 1979. And basically, primarily, my focus now is also pet dogs. Used to be years ago, The only thing that you did was you were either a police dog trainer or a hunting dog trainer. And when I first started out, I started out in Irish setters, actually at a period of time when they could actually still find birds. And that's where I got my start. Shut up, Josh. Seriously, I'll fly down to Texas right now and just get you. But yeah, I mean, and it was, the thing is for the most part, and I've always stayed, I started out with AKC dogs. I'm going to end up with purebred AKC dogs, and it's not anything against mixed bred dogs. As a matter of fact, an individual that I know and respect very much because of her success with her breed has a access to a litter of half short hair and half pointer.
I saw that.
And I'm sorely tempted. I just am, because wow. And they're straight field bred, so they're going to be hot, right? But am I old? After a certain point in time, you're too old for that kind of energy. And I think I'm at that point where I'm too old for that kind of energy. But anyways, be that as it may, the vast majority of our bread and butter is basic manners. Dogs who jump on people, dogs who want to eat people, dogs who want to eat other dogs, so on and so forth. And although I have largely stepped away from physically handling what we would consider to be dangerous dogs, I can still bullshit my way through that. I mean, as far as like teaching handlers how to handle those dogs safely without conflict and without risk of injury. I have a fifth guest. I'm getting ready to bring her on now. But in the video, or I'm sorry, in the still image that I posted today to remind everyone about this live, there are two dogs in it. One is a Labrador Retriever, and the other is a little pit mix named Holly that was adopted by our fifth seat. And essentially, she has quite the story to tell. And the reason that I'm starting this at the very beginning is because this is really important. Some of the details in what this woman is going to tell us are very, very important to the conversation that we're going to have for the remainder of the evening. So without further ado, I am adding my friend and young lady that I've had the pleasure of working with on multiple occasions. This is Miss Katie Moore. Can you see me, Katie?
Yeah, I can see everybody. How is everybody?
Okay, we are fine. So how are you today?
I'm awesome. Not too bad. Working with a 6-month-old Swissy for a board and train, and he's going to be a massive dog. So he's working on just not being a big gloop all the time.
Okay, so I want for you to, since you've watched part of this and you saw everyone give their introductions, tell us about yourself.
I'm fairly new to the whole thing. I started 3 years ago, and I got into this. I first started working as a doggy daycare attendant. And then a year later, the position of assistant trainer opened up, and I was like, I know I want to work with dogs, but I don't know where to start. And Brooke, the other trainer who works with me, she took me on, and I had zero experience at all. What I knew was what the internet told me, which was not what I know now. The internet tells you prong collars are bad. I used to be super against tools like that. But that's because I didn't have any knowledge. But now I have the knowledge, and it's like, those are actually super helpful tools. Anyway, I got my dog Holly about a month before I started training with Linda. And she was previously feral. She was dumped with her two sisters in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina. And she came with a lot of baggage. As you can imagine, she was terrified of just about everything. I mean, taking her to the park, like there was nothing there, there's nothing happening, but she ended up pooping herself because she was so terrified. And I was so scared of losing her. So I had like all this stuff on her, and I was like just paranoid. And then I started with Linda, and I started bugging Linda a lot. And she was like, lady, you gotta go away in a little bit. That's
not true now. Come on.
Yeah, I started with Linda, and at first I did not really commit myself to anything. And then I finally started to realize that, wait, this is actually working. Which, it's always nice when you see a dog that is terrified of everything to finally find confidence in what you are doing. I'm very thankful for that dog. She's taught me a lot.
I want you to, you don't need to name names, but I want you to kind of expound on some of the things that you were told about the from the place that you got this dog from.
Yeah.
And share that, because I think that's very telling.
So the requirements for me to adopt this dog, I had to have a fenced-in yard. And I was told that she would never be an off-leash dog, ever. She would never be allowed to just roam free in my yard, because she is a scent hound and they follow their nose, and there's no way you can get this dog to recall back to you. So, you know, it was scary, because in my mind, like, that's what I was dealing with. You know, a dog that is never going to be able to have that freedom. But also, you know, they just very little like goals for her. And obviously when I got her, like, my goal was just to get her socialized and actually be able to take her out places. But, you know, now that she's who she is, I literally could not imagine doing anything else with any of my dogs. But yeah, they were like, yeah, she's going to be a terrifying dog for the rest of her life, and she's never going to be allowed off leash, and you're never going to be able to do X, Y, Z. She got a total hip replacement about 4 or 5 months into owning her. But at that point, I had gotten to the downstay side of things, of, you know, healer and everything like that. And it made her recovery so much easier, because, oh my God, she, you know, she's a young dog, but she's got a lot of energy, and keeping that dog still was like, you know, I was worried that we were going to have to absolutely just drug her, but I just was able to use the obedience that we've been working on. But anyway.
So she has a novice title, and you're currently working on open, yes?
Yes, she titled in beginner novice first, and then she titled in novice. She did that really well. I think our highest score was like a 192 out of 200. But for that dog, like, we went into that ring, I had a third party person who has no idea what that dog has gone through at all. And essentially they told me that I've done a good job with my dog.
And they did that happen 3 times in order for you to get that title.
Correct. Right? Yep. And then we're working on open, and she's technically through open. Now we're in graduated open, or
right.
Yeah. And yeah, she's doing awesome. It took force fetch was hard, but once she got it, I mean, it was like she'd get clicked for, and I've never seen something light up so enthusiastically in a dog, especially one who's just like, I don't wanna.
Yep. Okay, so, and here we have between the 5 of us, we have a fairly large representation of people who handle pet dogs on a daily basis. Some of us that number in the thousands, and one of us who will be probably, I'll be long dead, and this gal is going to be still training. So hopefully that's going to, you know, hopefully that will continue to be a thing. But hopefully the climate for Katie will be much different than it will be for us, simply because the climate has changed so much than when we first started out. So now let's get down to it. Tell me, folks, what do you consider to be a trained dog? We'll start in the order that we started before. Jill, you first.
When I'm not training dogs, I'm an educator, right? A college professor. You got to have a metric. You got to have a way to measure. Otherwise, how do you know if you're making progress? And I don't think dogs care which side of a flimsy ring gate you're on. They only know if you're going to hold them to criteria or not. So if, as we learned, 4 times 4 is 16, it's always 16 in every context for the rest of your miserable life, right? So I won't say that the dog is trained or that the dog knows sit until they will sit on a single command, given in a normal tone of voice, indoors or out, eventually on leash or off, irrespective of the complexity of the environment. So in the presence of other dogs and people, bunny rabbits, kids on bikes, whatever people come up with as the excuse for why the dog won't. So that's me.
Julia.
So pretty much everything Jill just said, the way I try to explain it to my students is we'll know we're somewhere, when your dog is doing the thing that we're asking him to do at the time you would least likely expect him to do it at this point. And, I look at that picture. I also think about 3 factors that are more vague. And, obviously we can sit there and look at the actual, sit, heel, down, stay, come, and the compliance and the comprehension. But I also look at, is the dog predictable? So is my obedience predictable? Is the dog reliable, which is basically what Joel is saying under whatever circumstances. And the third one's kind of funky and people take issue with it, but I use the word invisible. I don't want to notice your dog unless it's for a good reason. So predictable, reliable, invisible, it's kind of like my criteria as far as just like an abstract thing. But obviously, yeah, my dog has to sit. My dog has to lie down. My dog has to come when he's called, regardless of what's going on. So I look at all the specifics that Jill just explained, and then I look at them through the lens of what I just, my little 3 predictable, reliable, invisible thing. And that's kind of my definition, as awkward as that sounds.
Josh.
Well, I don't want to follow that, but I will.
Follow it.
No. So well, both of them, but Jill as well. I'll say this because I know there's going to be some, I think we can say these words in here, jackass that will say, a trained dog for what? So that's a fair assessment. We're talking about pets and companion animals, right? Not kennel dogs that only work or et cetera. We're talking about a dog that lives in your home, as a pet. So there's that caveat. I'll frame it for me this way. A dog that is an asset and enjoyable, not a liability to himself, his owner, or the public at large.
Mm-hmm.
Katie.
I mean, you guys nailed it. I don't really have any much to add. The dog should take whatever command you give them on the first try. But I've heard a lot of people say that a fully trained dog isn't until their utility. But if we're talking about pet dogs and everything like that, I really think that novice is a really solid place for pet owners to be like this, because it's a companion dog title. So I feel like the novice skill set is really what every owner needs as far as obedience wise, because in the old ring, you can't talk, you can't give any commands or anything like that. The dog just needs to perform based off of repetition and all of the work that you've put in, and you either done the work or you haven't. So yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Katie, hasn't somebody told you that CD stands for competition dog yet?
Okay. All right. So Julia and Jill may remember 1,000 years ago in a galaxy far, far away on the old BT list, we had this conversation. This is going back 20 years at least. And I had actually written something, and of course I can't find it, but basically when the original conversation arose all those years ago, the first thing that I mentioned was that a trained dog is unobtrusive.
Yes.
And then basically, essentially, for whether it's the environment in which it resides or the community in which it resides, it is uncomplicated, which means that basically it's not causing drama anywhere it goes. Cooperation with handlers, regardless of whether or not that's the owner or the daycare provider or the vet tech or the kennel staff where you board your dog at. And as Josh had already pointed out, not a liability. And the thing is basically, as the years have gone on, all we've seen are dogs becoming a liability. I track legislation nationwide. I've also lately been starting to track legislation in Canada as well. And I've noticed that there's been a shift that's been going on for about 17 years now, where there is more legislation being designed to limit dog access to public places where dogs used to be fairly welcome. And it's not the well-trained dogs that are causing those laws to occur. It's the untrained or poorly trained dogs where those laws are starting to be written. And so basically, when we go to define what a trained dog is under the umbrella of being a animal owned by the general public, not a competition dog, not a sport dog, none of that. It's just, the Bernedoodle next door. What does a trained dog look like? So what are the skills a trained dog needs to have?
So it's like you said, it's the dog you can take anywhere that you don't have to make excuses for.
Mm-hmm.
But if we drill down on specifics, I'm a runner. So I hit the door pretty much every morning. I take one dog with me. Otherwise, they pace each other, and then pretty soon I can't breathe, and it's because they're like pulling me fast. My personal record is 6 loose dogs in 35 minutes in my central neighborhood in this kind of medium-sized Midwestern town. Every single one of those dogs was outside off leash, owned by someone who knew that the dog did not come when it was called. And they're chasing, yelling, Cooper, no, waving their hands, whatever.
Fenton!
Yes.
Fenton!
Yeah, Fenton. And I see dogs because I don't stop. I'm off the clock. Sometimes this is the only 45 minutes I get to myself in a whole day. Call the office, right, is what I'm thinking. I see dogs get hit by cars with some regularity because a jogger running with a dog is pretty irresistible to a dog who thinks maybe this might be the most exciting thing that happens to them that day. And when I compare that with the story I heard last night, we were at a birthday party. One of our training students was there. He had been in Colorado, a family trip. And because of the solid recall that we not only worked to teach him, but he actually practiced, he was able to call his dog away from not one in one situation, but 3 bears in 3 different months. And he was so happy to tell me that story, and I was awfully happy to hear it. So there's something, right?
Julia.
Well, as far as like what obedience should look like for our you said our hypothetical Bernedoodle.
Socially, what does a trained dog look like?
Again, unobtrusive. You said it. I mean, that's it. That's why I say that word invisible. Like, I want to see a dog walking down the street that I barely notice because the dog isn't interfering with me, isn't interfering with my neighbors, isn't causing a problem for other people. I mean, really, socially, it's basically your dog shouldn't be trespassing physically or otherwise on anybody who's, trying to enjoy the same venues that you're enjoying. So I think it's that part. And then I just think the responsibility you have an animal. Not everybody wants to meet your animal. Not everybody wants to be exposed to it. So at the very least, your dog should be able to be in a public place with you without, again, interference. I keep coming back to that because I just keep hearing the stories. What Jill just said, just there. I hear those stories all the time from my students who are taking their trained or dogs in training out to places where they should be able to maneuver in peace and getting accosted. And some of these dogs are on a leash. That's the other thing. It's not even about the off-leash dogs. It's dogs out of control that are on a leash. So whatever the opposite of that is, I guess.
Well, and the thing is, though, is basically when we have this conversation, we're talking about obtrusive dogs who are invading personal space. And I literally gave a beat down to a dog not that long ago for accosting me personally in really inappropriate ways. And the owner was shocked that I would do that. And I'm like, be glad it wasn't you. This is your job. This is not my job. If I have to clock your dog to get it off of me personally, that's an invasion of my personal space that you are responsible for, nobody else. So we're gonna another part of our conversation is going to be that culpability. So kind of remember that. And then Josh, you tell us what a trained dog looks like to you.
I don't really have anything constructive to add beyond what's been said, but I like Invisible. I'm going to put that in my pocket. But, we go out and do a fair number of client events with dogs that have hit a certain point, and, we take them out and people walk by and go, oh, there's a dog there. It's like, yes, and, well, I didn't know there was a dog there. Cool, that's how it should be. And then the next question half the time, inevitably, and I'm sure you've all seen this, is he a service dog?
Or can
No,
I pet
he's
this?
just not a.
Yeah.
See, sorry, I almost said it. He's just not an asshole. Like, this is what a trained. This is, we go out and have have a meal or whatever, and there's lots of. Linda, you've been out when we had you here.
Oh yeah. We'll tell that story.
I wish I had that on video, but we go out and like there's places that the whole place is a patio, but you have to go inside to order, and dogs aren't welcome there. No problem. So we'll stay a dog or downstay a dog and walk 15, 20 feet into the restaurant, and people go, oh my God, that's the best trained dog I've ever seen. It's like, the dog's just sitting still.
But it's magic.
That's not complicated. That's he's just sitting still. But people, there's no standard, which I think is, we're going to get to that too again.
Yep.
But beyond that, no, I like Invisible. That's good, unobtrusive, obviously. But like, we joke all the time. We're not really joking. Like, dogs are not public property. So like, leave my dog alone, but also your dog is not there to accost everyone in the environment as well, or shouldn't be. So it needs to leave everyone alone and mind its own business. But I don't have anything, novel or anything sage to say beyond what's been said.
Oh, that was pretty impressive. How about you, Katie?
I just think the dogs should not be a nuisance to people around them, the other dogs around them, the wildlife out there. There's my favorite compliment, and Josh said it, is when people are like, oh my God, I didn't even know you had dogs in here. I have people over all the time, and I've got 3 personal dogs, and I've got boarding dogs, board trained dogs here all the time. They live in my house. They don't have a separate place. So they live in my house. So when I have
Yep.
people over, my expectation is everybody shuts up because they're in their crate.
Yep.
My Holly, of course, she'll let out a little growl, and I just say quiet, and she'll that'll be the end of it. But I've got 8 dogs here right now, and I just had Richie's my boyfriend's parents over, and they were like, we didn't even know that there were that many dogs here. And it's like, that to me is what the ideal trained dog should be. And just so many people don't have that standard anymore. They would just want their dog to recall. Like, that's the biggest thing I get people coming in for. I just want my dog to recall. He walks great on leash. He does all this. It's like, you can't skip that without, you can't
Right.
skip
And,
that.
yeah, people who want to a la carte their training don't understand that there is a legitimate pattern or path that you follow in order to achieve that respect that's going to make your dog want to come to you to begin with.
Yeah.
I know a lot of, we're going to talk about different training methodologies and so on and so forth as we get further down the rabbit hole. But for the most part, there are a lot of trainers out there that's it's a one and done. They'll e-collar the dog into a recall, but that dog is relying on the e-collar for the rest of its days. And I'm not okay with that. I don't have a problem with using e-collars. I have a problem with using it as a way to just bludgeon your dog into doing something, that creating that relationship that everyone desires but is not willing to work for. I believe it's Jill that's got a great missive on Ask the Local Hooker about the difference between a relationship and whatever it is that these people have.
Service.
Yeah,
Are
it's
you buying
good.
a
It's actually-
service or are you buying a relationship?
Hey, there you
Guess
go.
what?
And
Yeah.
basically, it's like, the thing that really bothers me the most is the fact that, and this is a great segue for the next portion, is who determines what a trained dog is? Who determines that? The owner, the person that the dog is interfering with, or the community in which the dog is at large and causing mayhem everywhere it goes? Who gets to determine what training looks like? because this is a bigger problem. To me, it's a huge problem because you have two camps. You have people who are like, you should never tell your dog no, and heaven forbid you put anything on your dog that could cause it even the remotest amount of discomfort. And this is the classification of people who are creating this impasse where dogs are essentially lemon brains, are not capable of cognition, certainly cannot learn anything, and are reliant on the grace of others, I guess, for their existence, because we know that we can't punish our dogs. Otherwise, we're going to be excoriated because we told our dog no, or gave him a leash check, or, you know, corrected him for trying to violate that person's personal space or whatever. And then you have the other camp, which is like, no, the dog is capable of functioning under a parameter of guidelines that enable it to be able to survive quite nicely in a community larger than its own, right? So, and I tell owners this all the time. If you have more than one dog, you have a pack. You have a pack within another pack. So you have a sub pack, right, of individuals that lives in this community where only one of them understands the native language. And that's not the human, it's the dog. So we have to at least give them the gift of language so that they understand what it is we're telling them in order for them to be able to function anywhere that's not home. And part of training for me is to raise or elevate that dog's ability to function in any community that's not its own, right? On the street, at the vets, in the pet store, at the groomers, in the boarding kennel, going on the pub stroll, any place where that dog is going to be, where it's going to be horribly outnumbered by stupid people.
Okay, Linda,
Right.
so something you said is making me think about the part of the challenge is this bifurcation, these things that are split into simple binaries, right? The one camp, the other camp, or I tell people in my classes all the time, stop asking me, how do I get the dog to stop? That's that a la carte training. And if the dog is engaged in a behavior, an activity that is showing something that the owner says is an unwanted response to some external drama or whatever, the real question is, what would you like him to do instead? Because that's not going away. The guy in the hat, the kid on the bike, the bunny in the park. What would you like the dog to do instead? Because I do not know of an educational system anywhere on the planet that hands a diploma to a human student at the end of their educational experience with a list of things that we kind of mostly think they won't do. Right?
Well, and I'm going to interrupt, although it's rude of me to do so.
No.
But and I think that I believe that Josh will know what I'm talking about. There was a reference earlier on some dog trainer group, I can't remember which one, where an individual was talking about a sporting breed who was having difficulty keeping its shit together when it was in front of the prey animal it was bred to pursue.
Didn't I send you that?
And the trainer is trying to, what do I do? Whatever shall I do? And I'm like, oh,
I think I need more tools. I think this is the tool that's going to fix it.
Let's just hammer that nail into that, hammer that peg into that square hole or whatever. And it's like, why are you taking money? Why are you taking money? If you can't look at that animal and see that what it's doing is telling you, this is my genetical expression, this is what I do, help me do it better.
Yeah.
Right? So it's frustrating when you have individuals like that complicate things because they don't have the wherewithal to think past their clicker and bag of treats or e-collar or prong collar or anything. There's no sensitivity to the animal. And this is why there is such a huge impasse between what is a trained dog and who gets to determine that. And I don't know if Josh, I don't think you were there, but I know Julia and Jill were back in the old IACP Safe Hands days when we had this conversation ad nauseum about what constitutes a trained dog. And Summer Milroy, does a dog need a foundation of OB before using an e-collar? No, not really. It doesn't. But the dog certainly does need to know that it's capable of functioning without an e-collar. So we layered that. But there were people that would argue that the dog is not reliable unless it's wearing an e-collar. And that's just simply not true. And I guarantee there are people out in the audience right now that are saying, yeah, Linda, she's full of shit. And, arguing because they think that the only way you can get a reliable e-collars or a reliable recall is with an e-collar, or a reliable heel is with an e-collar and a ball tucked under your arm and all this other nonsense. It's not true.
What they do before e-collars?
I don't know. What did they do?
Exactly.
Oh, train the dog, maybe? Right? And then you have people who are going to argue that and say, well, look at all the dogs that got hit by cars. Those dogs weren't trained.
Mhm.
And Jill and I know Julia both have been around long enough to remember, I know I do, way back in the day when you went to the obedience rings. What was the one exercise that had 10 people deep along the ringside?
Out of sight stays.
Stays.
They don't have
10
those
dogs in the
anymore.
ring.
Oh, they're
No
too
cameras in
dangerous. They're
sight.
too dangerous. Most
They're too dangerous.
place to be in the whole world are open beach stays at a dog show.
Yep. So how is it possible all those years ago, but it's not possible now?
Right.
What changed?
Standard.
Expectations
Well,
changed.
Well, the expectations changed, and I think you're dealing with people. It's such a cliche, but it's just that they want everything on demand. It's the instant gratification thing, and when you have people around you who are literally selling that 2 weeks to a fully trained dog, I mean, when you have like that being sold, now it's one thing if somebody says, "Hey, I'll take your dog for 2 weeks; he'll go home better." Okay. But when you have people saying 2 weeks to a fully trained dog, and they can't sell that fast enough.
Mhm.
So part of it is the expectation. The dogs haven't changed, but I mean, I guess there's some truth to some of the dogs have changed. We do see a larger number of dogs who are completely inappropriate as pets, thanks to a whole other topic we won't get into. But between the internet creating a supply line for people who normally would see these dogs in the back of Dog Fancy, and order themselves up a Burble Mastiff or something. Now they can just push a button on the computer and get one. So there's that, and then there's the other end, which is all the weird, like what you're saying, Katie. The feral. Imagine if your dog ended up with somebody who wanted instant results. That dog isn't going to end up in a good place.
Nope.
It
took
and
her
people-
a long time.
I bet it did. And so a lot people are also different. That's the thing. The expectations are different. The people are different. People want things right away. They don't want to put the work in. And if their neighbor has a dog that goes through a whole crazy guy pulling the lever at the slot machine, going through all of his motions because he's got an e-collar on, they look at that and say that's a trained dog. And so I think that there's like a part of that that we see. So yeah, I think that's what changed. I don't know. Like I said, I think dogs. I started to say dogs haven't changed. I think there's more dogs in our population that are going to be more challenging to train. But if we're dog trainers, then it's kind of incumbent upon us to find our way around that and make it happen anyway, and educate the owners anyway.
Pete has a good point, and I was going to actually raise this because it's true. Oh, sorry, Molly, I'll get back to you in just a sec. People have gotten lazy. Most want the microwave
I was
success.
just about to say
And
something.
I am inclined to agree. I believe that there are more people who are not willing to make the effort because they've been sold a bill of goods that this should be easy. Going back to Jill's statement about whether or not you want a relationship or something else, right? And I think that people, I saw something the other day. I erased it off of my drive. I was going to share it here, but I thought better of it because I really don't want to put this person on the spot. I'm fairly certain that they're here or they're in one of the different places this is being aired. But basically what they were looking for was someone who would provide bonding counseling. Right? And I'm like, are you looking for a bonding agent? That's called glue. And I have no idea. I don't know what a bonding counselor is.
I think bonding is another service you can sell, right?
I
Bondage?
guess.
Bonding
Oh my
or
God, you
Brittany,
can make a
yeah.
lot of money off of that. People
But
will buy it.
I became very sad.
Mm.
Very sad. I mean, I was just kind of like, I mean, it was just, I can't believe, and again, this is coming from someone who is actively seeking advice, right? On a forum in another world, not Facebook, someplace else. And all of the answers were essentially people saying, well, what you need is a certified behaviorist and all this other bullshit. And I'm like, no, what you need is to get slapped upside the head and get some common sense. You're dealing with a predator animal. This is an apex predator who happens that we permit to live in our house. If you don't treat it with the respect it accords, somebody's going to bleed. You don't need a bonding agent or a bonding counselor. You need someone to teach you how to control this dog more effectively. Because, the going along with that is, my dog doesn't love me. He growled at me. No, honey, he growled at you because you're an idiot.
Mm.
You did something the dog basically said, I don't want you doing that. Stop. But you're too witless to see that. So here we are. Right?
Okay, so Linda, say what you said before elsewhere, just for the folks in the back, about behavior is training and training is behavior.
Okay. So, yeah, and this is another thing, and I see this at least 10 times a day. I see it from people that normally I have no issue with, I have no beef with, but then I see this and I'm like, who the fuck are you talking to? Right? So, and this has been a problem for me since day one. People have a tendency to want to cleave obedience from behavior. And you cannot. You need one, you rely on one in order to predict and control the other. Behavior is what a dog does. Obedience is what a dog knows. So if I have a dog and I tell it to sit, guess what it can't do?
Lay down. Anything else other than
Anything else. If I tell my dog to heel, I can walk that dog through a ring of fire and not have to worry about him flipping out.
Mm-hmm.
Or through Alexander's elephant army and not worry about him getting stomped on or running off out of mortal terror, right? But people don't want to make that kind of effort in order to see those kinds of results.
I think the world is just so quick now. Like everything is so instant
Mhm.
that people also think that, well, this has to be instant too. But it's like, as you say all the time, we go as fast as we can, but as slow as the dog needs. I can't make the dog do the thing if they don't understand it. Like people just don't. People want the results right now, and if it's not soon enough, they leave, and then they bash on the business. They're like, "Oh, my dog didn't get X, Y, Z," and it's like, well, if you did the stuff first off at home, that would have been nice. But otherwise, just like the world is just so quick now, and I just feel like everybody's expectations for quickness in every aspect of their life is just a demand.
Well, I mean, we are in the service industry in some aspect, right? But the problem is that we're facing is multifaceted. One of those things being there are people selling, like was already mentioned, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, your dog is done, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
We know that's nonsense and it doesn't work. But the problem is that most people think a well-behaved or a trained dog is just a dog that's been squashed into doing nothing at all.
Yep.
And that's like they think this, which she's not forced here. She's taking a nap, which is kind of weird. But like a dog that can sit on this and a dog that on a prong and a remote out in public is a-okay, good to go, as long as we can manage it with tools and bang it back into not doing the shit we don't want. That's not a trained dog, The other part of it, and it goes to what Linda said a minute ago, is like there's a difference between what most people teach, and I can make that generalization, I don't have a problem with it, which is individual behaviors. Loose leash walking is a thing. Sitting is a thing. Downing is a thing. Recall is a thing. And that's cool. I guess it's better than doing nothing usually, but that's not the same as using a sequential order of operations, so to speak, and using those individual behaviors in a way that teaches the dog something big picture along the process about how to become self-responsible and all the other things that come out of it. And it doesn't have to be done by any specific method, which we kind of all float in the same boat here to a certain degree. It can be done other ways, but it's not the same when you're just teaching individual little things, which effectively are just tricks.
I was just
You
about
know?
to agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Well, responsibility to task, and this is what
Right.
people are not. People are not training for that. They're not training a responsibility to task, like Pat Nolan says, obedience to odor, or obedience to the work. Right? Obedience
Right.
is the thing that we expect. When I teach my dog a skill, I expect my dog to be able to perform that skill under a variety of circumstances that are going to compete for his attention. It's like every day we had. Carroll County was last on the list to opening up public spaces to dogs. Baltimore City had a lot. I know Baltimore County and adjacent counties. Frederick, in particular, is actually very good about having open spaces available, public spaces available for dogs. Carroll County was reluctant, and justifiably so. I will not go any place in this county that has open spaces or public spaces open to dogs because the risk of being injured is fairly high. The risk of one of my own animals being injured is fairly high. I'm not going to do that. I'm just not. I'm not going to take the risk. And it's really unfortunate that no one else has the same level of expectation for their dog's performance as I do, at least in this community, right? I try to instill that in my owners that I work with, but it's not a guarantee that even they have the ability to control outcomes when they go into public and they experience these things for themselves. I just recently had a woman who was attacked. She was walking in the center of her rural road, and a dog came off its owner's property and attacked her and her dog in the middle of the road. Her dog reciprocated and did some serious damage to the dog that attacked it. Now the person that owns that dog is suing her.
Oh,
And it's like, how about this? Watch closely. No, you came off property, attacked this dog, and you expect me to pay for damages? Why is that?
Hell no.
Well, Linda, quick story. Just a quick story to staple onto the end of the behaviors training. Training is right. Is a million years ago, I went to an obedience seminar somewhere, Columbia, Missouri, I think. And the guy who was giving the seminar was showing everyone how to teach a drop-on recall, right? Open exercise. And he used an Afghan hound to do it, not a dog that you would think of as your first choice for obedience trials. And the dog was doing a passable, he was sort of getting it after a few minutes. And the clinician, the presenter said, does anybody have any questions? And one of the women in the back raises her pencil and she says, well, you can't, I have Weimaraners, and you can't teach a Weimaraner to drop on recall because their legs are too long. And the seminar presenter looked at her and he said, ma'am, does your dog sleep standing up? And she said, no. And he said, next question. And I
oh
thought,
my.
that's perfect, right? There it is. There it is. Behavior is what your dog does. Obedience is what your dog knows. And every time I've been to a seminar ever since, my whole assessment of the presenter is based on how they handle the yes buts.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We get a lot. When I did a seminar up in Maine, you were there for that, weren't you, Katie?
No, I missed it.
Oh,
I
you missed
actually
it.
I was
missed
there.
all the stuff.
Well, I did one with Josh. Actually, Julia was at the one in Maine, and
I was
did
in
one
Maine.
with Josh years ago.
I heard about it.
Everybody has. Anyone who does a seminar, there's skeptics. There's always skeptics, and everywhere I go, I have my share of skeptics. The vast majority of the people who come are, because I am a Keeler practitioner, and people think that Keeler is just this horrible abusive method, and it's not. It really isn't. Effective Keeler training is not abusive in any way, shape, or form. The tools are not. The method is not. The work that you do is not. We don't pound on dogs. Blah blah blah. Whatever. So the vast majority of people that come are shocked when they go away, thinking, "Oh my God, it wasn't anywhere near what I expected." Well, of course it wasn't. You came with a jaundiced eye to find fault with what the presenter did. And when you couldn't find it, you had no argument. And as a result, you went away, whether you were happy or not, it doesn't matter. Hopefully you came away with the one seed I like planting in everybody's brain is you don't know what you think you know, right? You want to cast aspersions on other people because you have such a hard time understanding that there are in fact other people who do other things and are equally as successful or even more so than you are. And it's okay. It's okay. We're not here to sit there and compete. We're here to sit here and help dogs and help owners of dogs get their dogs to a level where they are unobtrusive, uncomplicated, and cooperative, that they are not a liability, right? So we all goes back, around the horn in order for people to start understanding. The goal is to help the dog. The goal is to teach the owners how to help the dog. It's like I'm basically going through a huge model change because in 2025, the way I currently train or the way I currently make a living is going to be dramatically different. Please, however many Hail Marys I can put out there. But basically, it's like the goal remains the same, to elevate what a trained dog looks like. And since we're battling this upward stream of nonsense and bullshit every day when we go out and see, Fluffy on a flexi wearing his little service dog vest, yapping at everybody in the Costco, checkout line, right? And things like that. And it's like, and this essentially is the final phase of our conversation this evening, and probably the longest, is what is our role, the professional trainer's role in all of this. So what is our role when it comes to providing appropriate training? I don't know how to word this exactly. Creating an environment where not only is training welcome, because we all know that training is hard. All of us are seeing dogs that have problems. We're not seeing dogs that are just, the ratio of puppies to adult dogs with behavior issues has shifted just in the last 6 years. For us, I track that crap, right? So we used to do like more than 50% puppies, young adult dogs, the occasional spattering of dogs with serious behavior issues. Prior to COVID, throughout COVID, and every goddamn dog after COVID has had some form of behavioral issue that requires some form of remediation. I see less puppies now than I did when I was doing the puppy seminars years ago. That's criminal to me. That is absolutely criminal to me. And the reason why is because I don't want to fix problems. I want to prevent problems.
Yep.
My dog thinks I'm yelling at her. Come here and get the hair off your face.
Oh,
Come here, Lassie. Give me your face, monkey. No, you're going to beat me. I know it, you horrible killer trainer. Thank you for the hair. Thank you. Yay, yum. Okay, so, and basically that's kind of where I stand. My obligation to the community I serve is to help them understand how to make their life with their dog better. How does that look? It looks through the lens of training. Teach your dog to retreat. Teach your dog to come. Teach your dog to ignore other things when it's walking with you. Teach your dog to not move. We can consolidate those things into 4 basic skill sets that are couched, the high level overview: heel, hear, stay, retreat, kennel, place, whatever people call it, right? And then we have all the other things. We have 3 stationary commands, and we compound the intensity under which we expect the dog to work over a course of a long period of time, right? And the cool thing about people like Katie, who basically came into training when she realized that she was overdogged and people were lying to her, took a dog that nobody wanted, that everybody basically was considering was not necessarily useless, but was a fragile Fabergé egg and needed to be treated a certain way throughout its life, and made it something. And that's an honorable thing.
I almost didn't get her.
I have a bazillion, performance dogs out the yin yang who've done well or done things that one would expect from a performance dog, performance bred dog. The ones that give me the greatest pleasure are the ones that came out of the shelters in Baltimore, or came out of the backyard breeder's backyard, or came out of some nebulous place, and the owners committed to that kind of work, walked into the ring and walked out with ribbons. Not just, a ribbon, but every time they entered, they placed.
Right.
Right? That means more to me, not because it's high levels of obedience, but because they took fighters and biters and fearful dogs and dog aggressive dogs, and they made them something great.
Yep.
Right? I don't see people doing that. My obligation to my craft is to see more trainers do that, because that to me is the measure of competence, I guess.
Yep.
Right?
I just want to, if I may, I just want to like kind of add on to what you're saying. I did a lot of that with a lot of people who brought me problem dogs and got them into the ring. It might have been rally or, competitive obedience, AKC obedience, but in the ring and off leash. And those are the dogs like all these rosettes and things behind me. Those were won by my students. Those aren't mine. And that's something I miss being able to do. And I hear what you're saying, because it's like being able to get people who start out from a place of almost hopelessness, like you probably felt with your dog, Katie, like, where you just go, oh my God, I've got this terrible, lifelong project that I'm never going to be able to enjoy. When you have people telling you that, but then you find a route to not only can I enjoy my dog, but I can excel and have this partnership, and there's proof of it. And like you said, I think this is so important. A third party looked at that and said, that is good.
Yep.
And I am no one's competition trainer. I am not at all. That's not my venue. But I've helped people get enough of a relationship, for lack of a better word, with their dog through the obedience that they get kind of bored just walking their dog down the street, and they want to go test it. They want to go test their premise. And I want that. Like, that's what I want. I want to see more of that. And I have some students now who are geared more towards it. And I think that's probably the most fulfilling thing in the world is seeing people not just come in and, get their dog so that the dog is like street steady. I think that's fantastic. But when they're willing to go out there and kind of hang it out on a field or in a ring and have somebody else judge their work, thanks, Paige. That's killer. That's kind of what keeps me coming back. So I'm hoping to see more of that. And I wish we saw more of it just as a dog culture. But I also think, and this is a whole other topic, that even the competition stuff is getting dumbed down to the point where it might not mean as much to some people now.
It's before I shut up and let Josh say something. Basically, one of the things that a lot of these people who struggle with these very, very difficult dogs, and they go through this training and they realize that their dog is actually doing really good, and they show it. The things that people don't understand that they overcome, right, are the same things that we address on a daily basis when we have owners come to us and say, I can't take my dog to the vet without sedation. My dog can't go to the groomer unless he's sedated. No one can touch his nails, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you know what? A freaking stand stay will solve that, but it's going to take you 6 weeks to get there.
Yeah.
A reliable downstay is going to help with that, but it's going to take you 5-6 weeks to get there. I can give you all these things, right? But you have to be committed to doing the work. And then on top of that, you look really good. Why don't you go into the ring? And when nothing matters to me, I mean, it's the show ring and all that stuff. It doesn't matter to me as a place of, like, I know that Jill, she competes at the highest levels of obedience, and she doesn't make it. You have how many arches now, Jill? 6?
No, 3. Yeah.
3. Okay. Still, you have 3 more than I do. Okay.
Yeah.
That COVID messed up my whole mojo.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
COVID messed up. Took me off the rails. I had to get back on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
COVID did a bunch for everybody. But basically, it's like what matters to me is that these people, not only did they do the work, but they took pride in what they did, and they took a chance and they showed it off so that other people could be so motivated, right?
Well, okay, so quick story. 5 years ago, young woman calls me, wants me to come over, work with her privately. She lives in an apartment, first time dog owner, and she has a little doodle thing, little one. And I get over there. He's in a crate when I get there. And I'm doing my usual history taking, and he's squeaking in the crate. So while I'm still talking to her, I just get up, walk across the room, put a finger in the crate. He's 4 months old. So I just lifted it off the ground and kind of gently shook it side to side, and he shut right up. He didn't make any noise, and we went back and finished our conversation. She would tell me later on that before she called me, she had in the resident behaviorist
Oh, Jesus.
who told her that a 4-month-old puppy squeaking in a crate would take a year to fix, and it would cost an obscene amount of money. And if it didn't get done, she would have to euthanize him.
Wow.
That dog now has 6 UDX legs and 20 Arch points.
Wow.
And every
It's
time she
phenomenal.
wins another class, she beats me on a regular basis. And every time she wins another class, we laugh and say, boy, it's a good thing we didn't put him down, huh?
Right. And see, and this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. It's like, there is a legacy of non-trainer trainerettes running around saying stuff like this. I mean, it's like lately oh my God, the amount of traffic just in this last week about this absolute nonsense. These freaking trainerettes, like, what's the point of teaching your dog to sit?
Right.
And all this other
yeah.
stuff. And it's like, I teach my dog to sit because if he's concentrating on sitting, he's not trying to eat the mailman.
Mm.
Or he's not going to, he's not lunging at the vet as they take blood and things like that. It's like, I tie off my own dogs when we go to the vet and stuff. I hold off the veins on my own dogs. I don't let these people touch my dogs. There's only one dog of mine that I'll permit them to touch. And that's only because I pray to God she'll bite them. Right. And it's like, she wouldn't, but she, the look of disdain on this animal's face when other people handle her is just, it's priceless. But the thing is, though, is there was a time, and this is going back, my very first dog, I remember taking him to the vet, and they expected you to know this. They expected you to know how to hold the dog off. They expected you to know how to do the dog flipping so that you could hold the dog down for for minor procedures. I don't ever recall, and I know there's people who are going to complain like crazy because it was done without anesthesia, pulling stitches on a dog, pulling staples on a dog, right? Mm-hmm. Or doing sutures with a little bit of local anesthesia and just stitching them up while they're awake, right? In and out, bing, bang, boom, done. You are required to hold your dog for those procedures, right? Who, back in 1972, I don't know anybody who didn't know how to cut their dog's nails.
Oh God.
Right.
I don't.
Right.
Right. So, it's like every person that we work with, every single one of them, my dog hates it when you touch his feet. I don't care. He's a dog.
Right.
Suck it up and deal. Nobody's killing you. And I'm sitting there, the dog's screaming, and you're holding the foot, and the dog's, ah! It's like, after a while, they pre-exhaust themselves. It's like, now, since you're quiet, can we finish what we started?
Outlasting the dog.
Outlasting is exactly what it is. So, Josh, you're sitting there reading all these comments.
And other things, yeah. Making notes.
I'm sorry that I'm so boring.
That's not what I meant.
That is exactly what he meant.
I talked to you 3 hours day before yesterday, Linda?
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty
so
close.
Boring. I want to make a couple of points. The first one being, and I don't remember who was talking, but why do people keep going? Because I get asked that question quite a bit, usually by younger trainers that look at certain things and what I post and what I don't post and whatever. And it's like, well, how do you run such a tight ship and have all these standards and be really a hard ass, but you have all these people that go do all this cool shit? It's like, because I give them a goal. There is a goal. There is a standard. There is something we can work towards. We know what we're aiming for, right? And the other side of it, and I know there's at least 2 people watching this that are clients here that have become friends, and interesting to me because this industry has gotten filled with lots of personalities, and I'm internet famous, and et cetera, and whatever. Newsflash to everyone that will ever see this or whatever: you're a fucking dog trainer. Like, get a grip. Get a grip. But nobody in this conversation here today has talked about, look how cool I am, look what I fixed. It's all been focused on the
what
client.
I can do.
It's all been focused on the client. And that's, and I know that both the people that I know that are watching this and texted me a minute ago are going to go, yep, I get razzed all the time with people, even if it's just their CGC or they go compete and put their titles on, and got a high end trial winner watching right now, and they go, get in the picture. No, it's not about me. Because I can tell you what to do. I can tell you what to do all day long, but if you don't go do it, nothing happens. It's not about me. And it's not my dog.
And that's just it. Jill made a point, and she said that, the gal that she was talking about beats her all the time. It's like, that's the hallmark of great instruction.
I was going to say
I
that means
expect my students to beat me. I'm proud of when they beat me.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the other thing. TikTok dog trainers. Oh my
God. Don't even get me started. I got one of those working with me right now.
I had a first last
Not
week.
with me, but in the same.
Who here TikToks? Raise their hand.
I have a TikTok.
Oh my God, really?
I deleted it.
I go down the TikTok rabbit hole.
No
I know
way.
you send me shit like a teenager.
I do it for entertainment. I don't participate that much, although I have an individual that's interested in seeing my marketing, step up its game. Is like, you really need to do this. You need to post XYZ times a day. It's like, I don't have that. I don't have that kind of time. I just don't. I have a hard enough time creating content for the social media stuff that I do. I'm trying to finish a book I've been working on for over 2 years now. I'm trying to create content for that. And it's like, basically, I don't really feel the need to become the next TikTok sensation, which isn't going to happen. I'm not, svelte and beautiful and wear, skin tight clothes that read juicy across my fat ass. And I don't, have, a Malinois, which is the next, you have to have a Malinois. And it's just like, it's just yuck. Just no. I just think that whole thing is just really kind of, I don't know, seedy, revolting, insidious.
The problem is that people would rather pay the person that looks cool rather than the person who's posting trained dogs. Because going back to where this conversation started, largely, at least at the entry level for companion dogs, a trained dog looks boring. I didn't say they look flat. I didn't say they look sad. I didn't say they look crushed or all the other stupid shit that people say, though that's what a lot of people turn out. But a trained dog that you can take to the bar and take to the patio and whatever, it looks kind of dull. Because it's not jumping fences and all that shit. You can do that too. We do it. I mean, everybody in here to some degree is doing that. But it's tough because you got to get clients to keep the lights on or pay your bills or whatever.
Right.
But people also don't know what they're looking at. Did you see Linda, did you see the throw chain conversation last night?
I did not. Where is that?
I'll send it to you. I don't even want to give it publicity in one of the closed groups. But the people taking money don't know what they're talking about, but disparage things. So how do we expect the public to know what is and isn't? I mean, that's its own long conversation. How do we expect the public to discern?
Well, and the thing is, and having said that, it's like there's been the last couple of days between my new crush, Michael D'Abruzzo, and a couple of other things that have started to happen on a fairly large scale. Basically, it's like I posted a video because someone came hard after me. I posted that positive isn't really positive thing from Hounds from Hell, and this chick came in on me hard. She took shared the post from my page instead of the 900 plus other pages where it has appeared prior to me, and started going in on me hard. So the funny thing is I don't care. I don't know who this person is. She's not a trainer. You go looking at these pages, and their profiles are buttoned up tighter than a choir boy's butthole in a Catholic church, and you have all these other things. There's no evidence anywhere that these people train dogs. None. There's no, this particular individual. I don't even think I saw any evidence anywhere, because it was a sock puppet profile. There was absolutely no indication that this was actually a real person. And then at the same time, a colleague of mine, my friend Ashley Carpenter, had gotten something in her DMs from another sock puppet account, and essentially she was able to kind of dig around a little bit and find them. And it was basically their Instagram account was pictured one dog throughout their entire Instagram. And this is, you're calling yourself a professional dog trainer, and the only thing you have is one dog? Come on now. Right? So it's like these people have a tendency to think in terms of, I'm the greatest except for when I'm actually called on the carpet. And then as soon as I made a stink, I passed the link around to this girl's page. They disappeared it because the heat was just too much. You can come after me, but I can't go after you. No, that's not the way this works. So I posted the thing from 11 years ago about the e-collar, the little pit bull Ori on the e-collar. That's 11 years, actually it's 12 years old, right? Tell me that dog is suffering. 8.5 minutes to get her to start walking on a loose leash. Actually, she was walking on a loose leash the entire time. 8.5 minutes to get her to walk with me on a 15-foot long line. Mm-hmm. But that dog was miserable, dying, offended by the whole affair.
But they see stress where there isn't. They sit there and they literally count which hairs are standing up on which ear. And they become, I think our colleague and friend Heather used to reference it as, just refer to it as how many border collies can dance on the head of a pin, They get into that, that obsessive just vigilance about stress, and they invent stress. And, this is, again, the answer when you ask people what is a trained dog, and to what Josh was saying, a trained dog looks boring, but you kind of preemptively said they look boring, but to people who want to find problems, they look defeated and broken and all of that. And so that's the thing that we're fighting here. And so these people, like the one that's been, I won't say that's been harassing Linda, because apparently they disappeared as soon as there was any pushback. Those people are alive to be miserable, and they can't do this themselves with their own dog, and they certainly can't teach other people to replicate it. Therefore, none of us shall have it, because somehow we're, immoral and shouldn't have dogs at all. Well, that's how I look. That's how I see it. I might be completely wrong, but just like everyone else, right. I'm super jaded about the
Jill had the perfect response to this when she was talking about the immorality. Do you remember what you said? Do I have to dig it up?
No, I said willful ignorance is immoral.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what it is. It's immoral.
Hard. You have to work hard to not know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do. You have to work hard to not know.
These people burn a lot of calories not knowing. They really do. They should apply that.
And here I am getting fat on information.
It's an expression. I love that.
Do you think, and I don't know there's an answer, don't eat my finger, Betty. Obviously, ethics are a personal thing. Do you think that is an excuse for most of these people? And it's not any one camp, but you see it in all sides, about that's my favorite, and Linda's going to know who we're talking about, but my favorite line, the AKC doesn't need to tell me what a trained dog is. It's like, well, you can't seem to even reach the baseline, so there's that problem. But do you think that, because you can't argue ethics and have a reasonable conversation, right?
Well, you can't. And the thing is, though, is there's a lot of moral ambiguity in dog training, a lot. And whether or not it's like, I don't know how individuals are influenced when it comes to the decisions that they make regarding the dog in front of them and how to approach that training. But yeah, I agree. Their ethics is a huge concern, and we had this conversation 2 weeks ago when we were talking to Michael about policies, politics, and policies. Basically, it's like people with low or no ethics have a tendency to make it very difficult for those of us who have a very high moral standard or a high ethical standard. And I think that becomes a problem because we're all being painted with the same brush. Whether you're a positive only trainer and you want to sit there and go on about how, dog trainers who use, equipment that you disagree with, because I loathe the term balanced. I think that basically they either come from a place of absolute ignorance where all they're doing is just vomiting what they've heard other people say, or they don't want to know because they create this moral superiority or this moral high ground where they think that is going to carry them through the things that they can't do, if that makes sense. I can't teach my dog a reliable downstay, so therefore I'm going to make downstays criminal behavior because you used a prong collar or you used a shot collar or you used a choke collar, right? No, I used all those things and I used food. And my dog downstays, or my client's dog downstays, or whatever. And I think it's really fairly shameful that people will continue to pursue ignorance aggressively because that's where they reside. That's their comfort level. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an abomination. I really do.
One of the ways it comes to me, I think, is that, and I've said this to people before, but everybody's dog is an extension of their ego. Everybody's. And the more you deny that, the more you have invested. I think the way, I train my dog because I'd be lying if I said I didn't get an ego boost out of the occasional person who says, gosh, I wish my dog would do that, or how did you get that dog to do a downstay while you stepped into the restaurant? That's amazing. But I look for ways to indulge my ego that are not at my dog's expense. And I think that you can say I disrespect something as a method or an approach or a tool, but loyalty is ideological. And that's a different conversation. And I don't know. Ethics is an internal compass.
But you know what? Not for much longer. Not for much longer.
Yeah.
Ethics is not going to be an internal compass. It's going to be an external compass.
Right.
It's going to dictate what we can do and how we get to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, who do you want making those rules?
Yeah.
Educated people.
Well, guess who, and I was privy to, and I shared it with Jill and with Julia. This is quite a few months ago. I was privy to a podcast where all of the individuals were comprised of a group that I'm not going to mention here because I'm going to let Michael take care of that. But one of the individuals had the unmitigated gall to suggest that they should be the only ones permitted to educate people who wanted to be dog trainers. And I'm like, show me your body of work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Show me your body of work. Let me see the things that you've done. Right? I have over 2,800 videos on YouTube. Take your pick. Pick a breed, right? Ask what it is that you want to see me do. Most of them are unedited. They're just there as a placeholder.
That's the neutralizer of results, though, as the factor. Because then you say, well, ethically, I don't agree with doing that to get that result.
Mm-hmm.
And because you can sit and, have the supposed moral superiority high ground, you can't have any more conversation beyond that.
They don't have that proof, though. They don't.
Do you have to prove your personal ethics?
How are
Not
they going
you,
to prove that?
someone challenging.
Here's the thing, and this is one of the conversations that is currently being had elsewhere um, is basically it's like the people who want to allege these things. I'm sure all of you have seen the video of the quote unquote positive only internet trainer who is very thin and tall and feminine, who liked to chase his shepherd mix around this play yard because it wouldn't respond to him, but that's all positive.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Gat
Anybody
Zord.
see that? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he has 2 first names. Yeah.
Gak-
He came out with a response about that.
I'm sorry.
He came out with a response about that and basically.
Yeah, okay, whatever. But that's positive.
So,
You won't see me doing that shit. There's another several individuals, one of whom was highly placed in another organization, that basically signed a code of ethics clause that said I will not do these things, and then is turning around doing these things, and then got called out for it, and then all of a sudden decided, I can't do these things, nor can I endorse anyone else who does these things. But somehow they're trying to make this look like they're being persecuted. Is anyone following that story? I am.
I didn't see that one.
I just, oh my God, it's so exciting. I can't see it. Right?
No.
But I mean, and the thing is again, ethically, it's like the proof. There is no proof. And there was a conversation being held elsewhere where this individual made the conversation about them. I think Julia knows who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah,
and I'm not mentioning any names.
Right.
I'm not even mentioning where this other place is. But essentially, this person was told about this conversation, came to this conversation to shit all over it and make it all about them. It had nothing to do with them at all. No names were mentioned. There was absolutely no expectation that anyone reading these comments would know who it was at all. So they made an ass out of themselves, and the response has been just delightful, right? But the thing is, though, is it serves no purpose because it's just going to create more fuel to the respective fires. Now that, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to lie. Not only am I highly entertained, but it is creating dialogue where people are really starting to question the authenticity and the ethics of these bodies that want to claim that they are the righteous, the way, and the light. Right? I mean, this individual has hundreds of thousands of followers, so good on him, right? I'm hoping he carries. I'm hoping I will support him in any way, shape I can, because I think it's a worthy conversation. I think we need to start having it before politically we are written into the history books.
Yeah.
So, what else? Come on.
What else?
Well, there's a dog you couldn't train with food.
You had asked something earlier, Linda, about what can we do? And I suppose one obvious answer to that is to make the training, the work, as public as possible, or the results as public as possible. Because I don't know where in this community you would go to see a trained dog if it wasn't an obedience trial or some other working dog activity.
Yep. And as you know, the American Kennel Club is really starting to falter. I just read a statistic not too long ago that there was 20-some% more shows held last year, but the entries were down by 60% or something like. I mean,
yeah, there was a little bit of post-COVID stuff. I'm starting to see this year entries picking up.
In obedience?
Yeah.
Because they're way down in confirmation, which, yay, as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned.
I'm seeing them pick up. So people are getting out again or something after a little bit of time. A lot of it's regional, right? There's pockets of people who are doing stuff. But even going to an all breed show, the fascination that folks have with a dog who will stand on a grooming table with a blow dryer and a Dremel, or the poodles who are laying there with their feet crossed, is analogous to watching dogs do stays. Watching dogs do nothing, but at least as far as they're concerned. But I don't, so we try to get out places. Big box pet supply stores, that sort of thing, when we can.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully stay dog friendly as long as they can. We talked too about I always think this is an interesting question. I used to pose it on the radio show all the time. We know what it takes to get those no dogs allowed signs to go up.
Yeah.
What would it take to get them to come down?
Mm.
Which I think also is a conversation with city officials and that sort of thing.
Years ago, I did a PSA called "If a Dog Can Do This." It was filmed in a little park north of us.
I remember that.
We used to train in
I remember that.
4 days a week.
Uh-huh.
We actively petitioned for the community to take the no dogs allowed signs down, and they did.
Yeah.
And within weeks, within a summer, we no longer trained there because the dogs were out of control. There was shit everywhere. There was dirt everywhere. There was off-leash dogs threatening us, and I'm just like, this is pointless. So I got hoist by my own petard on that one. But basically, it's like we have this old shopping mall that basically is one of the last vestiges I can go in the wintertime if I have to and train, because it's barely empty. All that's in there now is essentially the mall walkers. I think there might be one or two anchor stores, but for the most part, the mall is pretty much empty. I mean, it's going under the blade, and pretty soon it's going to be some other craptastic commercial retail venue. Excuse me, but for now, I can train there. But it's getting to the point now to where we're being chased out of everything. I used to joke about this a lot. Everywhere I went, everywhere we lived, we've been in this area for over 35 years now. When we lived in Pennsylvania, when I left Pennsylvania for Maryland, I created a vacuum and pulled a whole bunch of trainers into where I was. And then when I left Harford County, I did the same thing when I moved to Carroll County. So there used to not be any trainers, and then all of a sudden there's trainers. And when I would go back to these same places, I was locked out of the places I created.
It's brutal.
And I'm like, what the hell? It's like, no dogs allowed now. And I'm like, I didn't do this.
Yeah.
I got into a fight with a fairly prominent, he was an expat, and then he came back when he realized he couldn't cut it overseas. And now he does whatever he does here. It's dog training adjacent. It's certainly not dog training.
Mm-hmm.
I got into a huge argument with him online because he was allowing his clients to go into these big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's and deface store property.
Wow.
And then he wondered why they were getting kicked out. Because, you munghead, what do you think they're getting kicked out for? You're letting them tromp all over stuff that people are supposed to be buying.
Right.
What's that? But no, what? No. But no, can't be me.
Well,
Right.
when you talk about the dogs going into, we have an obligation to show the public what trained dogs look like. I can say that I do a drop-in class on Sunday afternoons. That's why I'm always here when we sign in. I have a drop-in class of people who've been through like basic work with me, and we train. I'm in a little. It's a growing town. It's not a teeming metropolis, but we've got a whole downtown area with lots of restaurants and a bike path, and we routinely train out on the bike path. And we train in front of our community. And that's actually, I've gotten a lot of people who live within a few blocks of my school who come here and train because they've seen our dogs out there. And I actually give them a discount for coming in and buying into the concept. But one of the things, and actually, Paige just posted something about public training can be dangerous. I was just going to say, one of the things we run into when I bring my class out into the public, of course, we have all the people who are fascinated or, oh, my dog, I wish my dog could do that, the usual thing. But we also have the local talent with their idiot dogs who interfere with the class. And that's a thing that I find probably more challenging than anything is when we bring a bunch of dogs in training or dogs that would meet criteria as trained dogs into these places, and we're getting run out of the area by somebody's loose dog, or somebody literally being dragged up to our dogs by a dog on leash. It's really, it's kind of like girding for battle every Sunday. We have to like look around and decide, are we going to do it? And I always compare this to, I used to ride a motorcycle, and one of the things I learned was you can be an excellent motorcyclist, but it isn't about you.
It's about everybody
It's about
else.
the other guy.
Yep.
There's a documentary about guys who race. It's called Faster, about the guys who used to race the leader bikes. And at the very end of the film, they ask all these guys who race internationally at the highest level of the sport, do you ride your motorcycle on the street? And if I remember correctly, to a man, every single one of them said, we would never ride our bikes on the street. And these are the top riders in the world.
Yep.
And they won't ride their motorcycles on the street because of people driving carelessly. And that's what I think when you bring your training classes, or even just your individual dog out into public, it's kind of that. You're dealing with the equivalent of people driving 18-wheelers looking at their cell phones.
Yeah.
So that, I think it's so important to get out there in the public, but that is one of the risks that we run, unfortunately. And it comes back to the narcissistic, idiots who think everybody wants their dogs to, they want everybody to meet their dogs, and everybody wants to meet their dogs. And the low standard of what training is. There are people out here walking in my neighborhood who are going to trainers, and their dogs haul ass up and down the street. They're in front of my shop. They're doing the thing where they throw the food on the ground and let the dog hunt food.
Wow.
Those people are paying trainers. So
Yeah.
I look at that too, and I say those people think they're training in public too. So
And we've been shut out of a lot of places here locally. We've been shut out of almost all of them. And I'm back to doing the guerrilla dog training I used to do 1,000 years ago, and just basically going someplace, popping a dog out of the truck, doing the shit, moving on someplace else, popping a dog out of the truck, doing the shit, and just doing stuff on the fly, because there's so much risk associated with it now. And so basically, we have a park that's not that far from, it's about 20 some miles from the house, southwest of us, that I will have, I'll ask owners to meet on occasion. But I've even stopped doing that recently. One, because this last summer the heat was just abysmal. But two, because it's just, you have a tendency to collect the wrong kind of onlooker.
Yeah.
And it's like people sit there with their spy glasses trying to find you, trying to trip you up and say, oh, look at that, they did something horrible. It's like, no, I didn't do anything horrible. We have dogs working there off leash, on leash. We have growly dogs. We have fearful dogs. We have all kinds of stuff going on. And it's like, come over and ask a question. Don't sit there and cast judgment because you think you can do something better. Show me.
Yeah.
Bring your dog out.
But Linda, they have no mating call.
Well, I mean,
From the intro, right? The Windsors, there they are. They still walk among us. The Windsors.
Well, we've always contended that basically it's middle-aged women who have never experienced an orgasm in their fucking lives. It's like, and I'm gonna, I'm sorry, I said it. Oops, kick me off, right? But basically, it's when you get these, they either have horrible experiences. They either have horrible experiences with a significant other. I'm not even going to say a man because, oh my God, I'll be, considered a whatever it is now when you don't, whatever. Shut up, Peter. Shut up. Just shut up.
Peter, help. I'm outnumbered. Help.
Yeah. But basically, it's like, everyone is so offended by the fact that, that you called me the wrong name. You judge me because of the way I dress. If you're walking around like a goddamn skittlehead, then I get to say whatever I get to say. Right? And it's like, I don't care. I have a good friend of mine has purple hair. I love this girl. I don't care that she has purple hair because she doesn't act like a skittlehead.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But when you sit there and you can, oh, you hurt me in my fifis, then we got problems. Because no, I didn't. You just took it that way. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be a narcissist, but it's not. Sometimes it's not about you. Sometimes it is about me.
Yeah.
Well,
I
here we
think-
go. My favorite, Malinois.
Yeah.
You're not anybody until you have a Malinois.
I'll give somebody my Dutch Shepherd.
Oh, here we go.
I'll give somebody my doodle. Oh,
Welcome to Thunderdome, bitch.
Yeah. Right.
Right? It's like I got, you know, I mean, the biggest compliment I can pay somebody is to hand them one of my dogs.
Hmm.
Not because my dogs are perfect, but because they're my dogs. And if you mess with my dogs, I know what the result's going to be.
Right.
yeah.
Right? So it's like, you know, God bless Vi. He's not with us anymore. He hasn't been for a long time. But basically, it's like that was the most tolerant animal I've ever met in my life. He would look at me like, you know what? When we get home, I'm going to cut you, bitch. But while we're here, I'll tolerate this nonsense. And Pearl, I would never hand that dog off to someone else. Never. Never. Because she'd cut him.
Right.
They would do something stupid, and she would be like, yeah, I can't believe that you're giving me permission to actually slice and dice today, Mom. Thank you. Thank you. Right? But it's, you know, I mean, you know, as we start winding down the evening, basically it's like our obligation to the public that we serve is to do the things that need to be done, even though it might be uncomfortable. For them, it's not uncomfortable for me.
Right.
Right? It's uncomfortable for them. I had an experience not too long ago where a client of mine was working with her dog. This is week 5 out of a 6-week, you know, short format straight keeler. And she was having difficulty getting the dog's head off the ground. The dog was actually using it as a redirection for essentially confusion. The dog didn't understand what she wanted. And yeah, Pearl handled Dagger. You ain't lying there. She couldn't quite understand that her timing was off just enough for the dog to not really understand what she was trying to convey.
Mm.
So, and then it got to the point to where every time she would make a corrective action, the dog essentially took it as an opportunity, took it as a signal to drop her head and start scavenging. So I just kind of walked over and introduced the dog to her very first out correction. The owner was beside herself with angst.
Mm.
Guess what the dog never repeated for the remaining 40 minutes of the lesson?
Yeah.
Regardless of who the handler was,
Yeah.
right? But the owner was so shocked that I would do that. And it's like, how else are you going to do it? Nothing else you're doing is working. And on top of that, everything you're doing is telling the dog to commit to that behavior.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, you know, Stephen R. Lindsay, the whole Lima principle and how it was absconded by IAA, BC, and Alphabet Soup, whomever. Basically, what it starts with is essentially Lima isn't starting with the lowest level of force or pressure to get the dog to comply. It's going at what you feel is necessary in order to get the dog to stop engaging in that behavior. It's not like you're going to the very top and working yourself down. You're going to a mid-level that says, knock that shit off implicitly. And then the dog either says, okay, gotcha, no problem, I understand. Or you have to increase it somewhat. Because the whole point of a correction is what?
To make the dog correct.
The whole point of a punisher is what?
Stuff.
To stop the behavior.
To stop the behavior. So if you're sitting there nagging,
Right.
you know, jab, 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 right? How is that least invasive? You nag me, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to belt you.
Right.
Right? If I go in and interfere and say, knock that shit off, in unequivocally in a way that the dog understands, because it's a timing issue, not a force issue. And all of a sudden the dog starts understanding, oh shit, I didn't know. Thanks for telling me. Right? I've never seen a dog not recover from that ever. Ever.
Right. But remember, this is, again, these are the people who have a problem with, they want to see something that is efficient and effective and instantly say, well, that's evil. That's, you know, inhumane, because it was, they don't see effective and efficient. They see, oh, that was brutal.
Yep.
And they don't see the I always just look at the very simple fact, dogs don't live long enough, man. I don't want to take 3 years to teach something I could maybe hammer out,
Months.
in 3 days,
Yep.
3 minutes.
Well,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that in itself is a tremendous, you keep these dogs trapped in this prison of their own terrible behavior because you don't have the backbone to show them the way out of it. And I feel like, again, to come back to the whole theme of what we're talking about, that's why there's never going to be a consensus, I think, of what a trained dog is, because you're always going to come back to that very vocal, very rich with free time group of people who don't think that a trained dog, in our definition, can exist without some sort of cost to the dog it's unnegotiable. They won't even think about it. They won't even think about putting a dog through any kind of stress to result in a dog that has a life that's very low in stress because of their belief system. And again, those are the people who would like to define what dog training is when you ask who's defining it.
Right.
Well, and I think it goes back to what Josh was saying earlier too about a stance, or the idea that this is a frame, that it's bigger than the sum of its parts, right? When I read through that recapitulation of, not recapitulation, that recap of Lima, the way that it was presented in that post that I think I saw today, I don't know how old it was. I'm like, every experienced classroom teacher knows this. You don't go in on the first day of school all sweetness and light. They'll eat you for lunch.
Yep.
You go in on the first day of school, here's how the semester's going to work. Here's how we're going to work together. Here's what the expectations are. And then as the relationships develop, you can back off on this or bring more of that or whatever. But you don't go in with the idea that you can start off sweet and gentle and dial up as you go. It will not work that way.
Yeah.
It just won't. And to pretend otherwise is to live in some sort of emotional Disneyland anyway, but
There you go.
Well,
Yeah.
and the tax for that, and I just kind of lost my train of thought, but the tax for that, when it comes down to what does a trained dog look like, and I'm going to offend every e-collar user that's watching this, with the exclusion of a few, because they know where I'm coming from. A dog can function in public without tools.
Mm-hmm.
He's not reliant on, he's reliant on that elusive relationship that everyone's looking for, that bond, but it's not reliant on tools. I don't need for my dog to wear an e-collar. I don't need for my dog to wear a prong collar. I don't need for my dog to wear anything. I need for my dog to use me as the focus of all of its attention.
in my classes, I use the example of training wheels on a bike, right? Training wheels stabilize the ride so that the kid can learn all the things they need to know to make the training wheels go away. You ask any 6-year-old, what's the goal here? They will tell you, training wheels are for babies. And if you were standing in the farmer's market on some sunny Saturday morning, and here come 4 guys on $5,000 mountain bikes and another $1,000 worth of Lycra or spandex or whatever they were with training wheels, you'd be like, dude, learn to ride the bike already.
Well, and you see a lot more obedience trials than I do, Jill. And it's like, I remember when standing by the obedience rings, and the confirmation, like one of the venues that we do clusters of shows down here, it's one of the only ones that actually has enough space to run obedience trials at the same time, is the confirmation people would be on either side of a large auditorium, and obedience would be in the center. So there's 3 buildings, and the confirmation had to pass through to get to all of their respective ranks. And the obedience people would be incensed, absolutely incensed, because the confirmation people were racing their dogs from one end of this complex of buildings to the other. Because, usually, the handlers with their big rigs have, 35, 40 dogs are set up over here, and they got ring time over on the other end of the complex, right? And I'd sit there and I'd laugh out loud, and people would look at me, and I'm like, train your dog,
Mhm.
train your dog.
Mhm.
Why is it all of a sudden these things are outside of the scope of ability?
Well, next to nobody's using competition obedience as a display of real world skills. That is the
That's
root
true,
of that
too.
issue.
Yep.
I mean,
I am.
sure, and I do too. I tell people when we come in, they go,
For me,
well,
that's like saying,
right.
it's like literacy, right?
Yeah.
You use your literacy skills to read everything. Well, you
Words are
use your
words.
training obedience skills to do whatever you want to do. And
Yeah.
Well, and people, there's so much venom associated with that.
yeah,
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
even amongst our contemporaries, right? Even amongst people that we've known for decades,
Yeah.
are like that. It's like, well, you know, I mean, look at the dogs coming out of the obedience ring. Look at my dogs coming out of the obedience ring. They're healing
And then
quite
I'm
a long
like-
way out.
Well, and then I'm like, when was the last time I don't see y'all at dog shows. So
There's that.
what dogs are you seeing? You're
Right?
not there.
Right.
And what is that line about? Tell me what you won't do, and I'll tell you what you can't do.
Right.
Yep.
Right?
And that's correct. It really is. It's like I have nothing right now as far as training goes. I mean, I have no dogs of my own that are. Spider is up in New England, pretending he's a bird dog. Pearl is ancient, and she sleeps and stares off into space. She sleeps with her eyes open, which really bothers me because I think she's going to kill me in my sleep.
She's thinking about it.
And you know, and Rooster, who has serviceable obedience for the things that we have him do, and that's it. That's all I have. So I'm actually Jones wants to hang out with Spider. Go call Andrew. I'm sure they would have a real good time together. Yeah, Spider could use an ass kicking. But basically, it's like, so I'm back in the market for a dog. What?
Didn't you say you were just gonna get one from overseas, but with the what breed?
I
were you-
can't. Yeah, I get that's no longer. And as a matter of fact, she just sold. So I'm kind of without until that changes. Those prospects are close to me because I'm not importing a dog that I can't influence, right? So, and again, because by the time the dog gets here at 6 months or older, what I need done for that dog has already been done by somebody else, right? I want to imprint that dog's behavior. So I'm going to be looking for something domestically. I haven't quite sure decided on what that's going to be. So no, Karen, no, that's not happening ever.
Ew. Sorry. Oops.
No, it's gonna be another sporting breed or another herding breed. Those are the only two things that I'm going to be doing. My husband and I have been kind of tossing around potentially another German Shepherd. So that's within the scope of possibility. So, but yeah, looking for a good shepherd is like pulling hen's teeth.
Yeah, good luck. Good
Yeah.
luck.
That's right.
Yeah, right, Pete. That's right. Stop picking up dogs, Pete. Stop it. Right now. But basically, yeah. So I we're gonna take the last couple minutes to close off. Who's got something to say before we go?
I'll say something, I guess.
Say it.
I had someone start. It goes back to I keep losing track of who's speaking as I read comments. But the comment about things costing things, and it certainly costs effort to get a dog to the level of training we're talking about, just basic competency. But I had someone start, and the dog's here right now. Actually, kind of a weird program I'm testing out with this situation, but. She's a horse person. She rode competitively. Don't ask me the venue. I don't know shit about horses, and they freak me out. But large prey animals are not for me. But you know, she came in and like the first lesson's a young Ridgeback. She won't watch this, and I don't care if she does. But she made the comment. She's like, "No, I need the dog to like listen to me and blah blah blah, like 80%, and then I'll be the dog's friend 20%." And I kind of looked at her funny, and she's like, "What?" And I was like, "What? You don't have to." It's not a ratio. It's not a sum to 100. You can have a dog that is 100% reliable and still a goofy ass dog and still goes and does all the things, and you can do all the other shit you want to do with it if you're clear. You know? And yes, it's its own conversation we don't need to get into today, but like where you put strength in one place can create weakness in others, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we're talking companion animals, and I mean, well beyond the utility ring. If people were clear about what they're doing, it doesn't have to cost you something. You know, there's other than your time and effort and money if you're paying somebody to coach you. Not that there's that many people worth paying money to, but there's not always a loss just because you put control on a dog. I mean, Linda knows, nobody else really does. Like, this dog's a fucking lunatic. She is.
Oh, Black Betty, bam, bam.
Yeah, thank you for that. But she's a lunatic. I mean, she's what I paid for. Pedigree's filled with field champions and national field champions and blah, blah, blah. But that's not what we're doing right now. You know, so she understands that. So she's kind of hanging out. She's a little solicitous and pushy. I get that. But just because she can do this doesn't mean she can't run. You know? But everybody, and I guess it goes back to the squishing of dogs and what people call obedience and what have you. But like, just because she can do this or any of the other ones that I'm watching walk out of my office, Linda's been here. Katie, you coming still? But
Oh, I feel called out.
You are.
you are.
I am.
But like, they do the things, but they understand that there's clarity about expectation, when and where, and in what circumstance, and in what picture, etc. And so I played with this woman. She's not a girl. She's my age. Played with this woman's dog after we got done with an informal long line session, you know, puppy stuff, just to get her out in public and expose us to things because she was at the breeder still at 4.5 months old. And she's moving along. We're using some food, incentivizing it all, whatever. But the dog's doing the work. And then we got done, and I slap boxed with the dog, and she's a little bit soft. And the dog went, "Oh, this is safe and cool," after about 30 seconds, and like played into it. She goes, "Oh, so the dog can be like trained at a high level down the road. We're working on it, and we can still do all this." I was like, "Yeah, you just have to be consistent and clear." You know, I don't think high levels of obedience has to cost you or the dog some part of who they are or who you are, and that irks the shit out of me. But that's another conversation for another day. So, what's a trained dog? I don't know. I know I see it when I see it. I don't think anybody's ever going to agree with this panel.
No,
or
but the thing
very
is,
few.
again, show me. I mean, it's
Yeah,
like,
right.
you know,
Exactly.
I'm from Missouri. I'm from the show me
Exactly.
state. I need for you to show me that what you have is a superior product to what I can produce. And not just me, but people like me who have the same drive or have the same incentive to create something that other people don't have.
That I think is a conversation for another podcast, but you said something I meant to say earlier. When people want to, I don't care, and I say this all the time, and we've had this conversation. I don't care how you train your dog as long as it's ethical and safe and fair to the dog. Don't care.
I don't care how you train the dog. I just care
do
about
not
the dog
care.
being trained. Period.
But you can't say something is better or more modern or more whatever if you can't get to the same end result.
Right. It's not how the dog is trained. It's that the dog is trained.
That the dog is trained. And if you can't get the dog to that level, then I'm not interested in having that conversation with you.
Yep. And I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. And it's like, I have a lot of clients who are very, very happy with the level of training that they're at, whether they went through the entire long format or whether they chose to only go through half of it or get to the level where they achieved their initial goal of getting the dog to stop jumping and be just a little bit more of a pleasant house pet or so on and so forth. So to them, training is going to be looking a little bit different than what we would consider to be a trained dog. But the overarching premise, and this is a conversation that we had when Michael was when we hosted Michael 2 weeks ago, was the fact that in a situation where you have people saying that these things aren't a possibility, they are in fact a possibility. It just boils down to a matter of how much effort you're willing to make.
Yep.
So, all right, Julia, you got any closing words?
No, I mean, this has just been very refreshing to sit here and listen to everybody from all
Well,
the
I'm
different-
glad that you decided that you wanted to do this with us.
I'm a
I
real
am
ray of
too.
sunshine.
Yeah, Josh is a little ray. When is your podcast dropping, Josh, with Gundog DIY?
He said this week. I sent him photos and video, or photos and logos and that kind of thing. So yeah, I guess we could drop that if you don't, and you should, because Nate has a couple of great episodes.
Yeah.
Gun Dog It Yourself podcast.
Yeah.
It turned into a 90-minute or so bitch fest, which we'll see how it gets edited. But you like listening to me complain and him also complain about stuff that people should and shouldn't do, then that should be available to you in the next 7 to 10 days.
Cool. So yeah, Gun Dog DIY is a great podcast. Also, Nate and Gretchen, I don't know if they're still here or not, but Gretchen just did one on puppy raising, which is very, very good. And Nate has done several that are actually very, very good. The guy hasn't put out anything, horribly bad yet. So there's that. What's his name's Nick, right?
Nick Adair, yeah.
Nick Adair, yeah. So yeah, but there's that. There's of course there's Jill. She's located in Nebraska, Prairie Skies,
Prairie Canine on Facebook.
and Julia is Fortunate Canine in New Hampshire,
Derry, New Hampshire.
and Katie is
I didn't know you were that close.
where are you training out of?
Right?
Blue Dog Daycare in Maine.
Okay, in Maine. Josh is Houston, Texas, Houston Dog Works, and I, of course, am Linda Kane with Lionheart Canine right here in the mighty metropolis of Westminster, Maryland. So that pretty much concludes our podcast for the day. We'll see you in 2 weeks, but here's what I want everyone to do. Send us ideas. There's Linda and Jill and Julia. We are the head of, as Jill said, Cerberus, the guarding the gates of hell. So we are the three-headed dog.
I like it.
And basically we have up to 10 chairs available. We haven't quite built up the steam for that yet, but we'll try to always have a guest chair. And if you come up with the topic that we decide that we want to discuss, you might be our fourth chair. Thank you everybody for joining us this evening, and I hope you all have a really great night. Okay, that's it. We're done.
Bye all.
Bye.
Bye.